Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session on open educational resources and dual enrollment, a pathway to increasing post-secondary education. This is our series. There are three installments of this series. Today's session will be focusing on equitable access and college affordability. Again, I am Charlotte Dailey, the program specialist here at SREB for Open Educational Resources. Joining me today for this discussion is Dr. Stevie Lawrence, Vice President of Postsecondary Education, and Dr. Robbie Melton, Associate Vice President, Smart Center at Tennessee State University. We will move briefly through this conversation that begins with equitable access to post-secondary education. Where does it begin? What gateways will students need to move through in order to move into dual enrollment, to even have access to use the open educational resources? Dr. Stevie Lawrence will move on into making college more affordable for students, most certainly those in underserved populations. And closing us out would be Dr. Robbie Melton, as she does an overview of learning solutions from the institutional and organizational side. So equitable access to post-secondary education. What is it? It's a big conversation right now. And those of us who are practitioners in the field of education are grappling or wrestling with this definition. So today I want to speak from the point of two definitions I recently found that pretty much encompass the notion for me. Equitable access is the notion that every student in any classroom in any public school in America should have the same opportunity as any other student to be taught by a great teacher and supported by a great system. Equity in education means that personal and social circumstances, such as gender, ethnic origin, or family background, are not obstacles to achieving educational potential. That's the definition of fairness. And that all individuals reach at least a basic minimum level of skills, the definition of inclusion. So, doing research for this presentation today, ran across a report that was done by two reports, actually. One was done by the United States Department of Education that was released in September of 2019. The other is a report that was released by the National Alliance of Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships, or NACEP, that was released in March of this year. And so it talks about the advantage or the range of advantages of dual enrollment for students. And of course, it's a chance to complete high school and college credits at the same time. An introduction to and preparation for college life, expectations, requirements, a smoother transition from high school to college, the ability to explore various careers and majors before enrolling in college full time. It's also an opportunity to address skill gaps, improve study skills and academic knowledge before becoming a full-time college student. It's motivation to persist from term to term, continue to complete sequential courses, and possibly pursue a post-secondary credential or degree. Confidence in one's ability to do college-level work and successfully pursue a post-secondary credential. An understanding of the potential economic benefits of post-secondary education. And an accelerated pathway through college that saves students time and money, which will be the focus of the latter focus of our presentation today. So with that said, let's begin the conversation. Access in education. What does it mean? We reviewed the definitions from which I'll speak, but how does it play out equitable access to having equitable access for each and every student through the doors of dual enrollment? Well, for me, and I'm hoping some of you will focus in on how education is delivered to students. The what, the when, the why, the where are already done for us. So the only thing we can focus on and tweak to make sure that each and every student has the same opportunities is the how. How do we deliver the educational package? That's where each and every teacher, everyone in the educational system who comes in contact with the students can make a difference. You see, I was afforded the ability recently to attend a regional conference of school boards in Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. And the keynote speaker, Miranda Beard, former newscaster and former president of the National School Board Association, she gave a really, really good definition of the difference between equity and equality. See, often we're focused on equality in education. We want to deliver a good product. And with the coming of Common Core a few years back, we focused as educational practitioners, we focused on making sure that each student had the same education. We wanted to make sure that they were taught the same standards at the same time during the same information. Each student was taught to a level to be able to critique others, the reasoning of others. That's a deep level of teaching required to each and every student. So the consensus of the group who prepared the Common Core standards was that each teacher should teach the same way. You know, there was an emphasis placed on creating professional learning communities where the teachers would meet every week and they would talk about their delivery and how to stay on task with the pacing guides, make sure that students had this information. But as Ms. Beard shared with us during the conference, even though you're providing equal opportunity for education, you walk into the classroom and you move through your lessons so that every student understands exactly the same thing at the same time. It's like walking into a classroom and offering everyone a brand new pair of shoes, all size 10. The shoes are great. We can say they're Italian leather. They're a popular color. Every student wants it, but every student can't wear them because they're the wrong size. And that's how we have to look at education. And as this pathway to dual enrollment opens, how do we make sure that every student, that we're increasing the pathway into post-secondary education for minority or underserved populations? Well, the answer is to increase the pool for everyone. We've got to make sure that each and every child has equitable access to this opportunity of dual enrollment. So when does the access actually start? We know that 11th and 12th grade is when they actually participate in those courses that are delivered by post-secondary or college professors. But do we wait until they get to 11th grade to make sure they have the opportunity? Do we wait to introduce the possibility or the probability of dual enrollment? Do we introduce it to them in 10th grade? Well, each state has their own, each state that participates in dual enrollment has their own set of criteria. So how do we look at whether or not the students can move through the door, the pathway into dual enrollment? If we wait to 10th grade and they have to have a 2.5 or 2.75 GPA in order to participate, and that student is sitting in 10th grade with a 2.0, the possibility of them matriculating through on to post-secondary education may become daunting to them. So we've got to push the opportunity back a little bit. So do we introduce it at 6th grade? Well, 6th grade, you tell them, okay, dual enrollment is this great opportunity where you can enroll in college courses and satisfy your requirements for high school completion and entry into college at the same time. We introduce it at the beginning of middle school. Well, if you are from the educational arena and you participate in all these conferences and talks and conversation about education, you know that there is a definite problem in the middle school area. It's grades 6 through 8, something happens. Something drastically happens, especially with African-American males. Reading levels go down. So, students who report great reading on task or reading on level in K-5 suddenly don't read on level when they get to 6th through 8th grade. their math aptitude decreases. So something is going on in middle school that needs more research from us researchers in the post-secondary field. But so is that when you introduce the emphasis of post-secondary education? Sure, you can introduce the opportunity to them. You can tell them about it. But is that when we as practitioners should focus on making sure each child has equitable access to dual enrollment? I think not. Do we move back to K-5? We've got to look at the K-5 unit. We know that there's a reading gate in there. We've got to make sure that each child has the opportunity to successfully move through the reading gate in order to complete that grade and that unit to even move into middle school. So thinking of dual enrollment, we've got to keep that at the forefront of our thought for each student at every pathway into education. So K-5, we've looked at the reading gate. What about pre-K? Do we look at pre-K? What's offered to each and every child in pre-K that they can successfully move into kindergarten? I want to tell you a story. I was afforded the opportunity to participate on the P16 committee in Coffeyville School District in Mississippi in 2013. It was Common Core was coming online, and states required all of these committees to be formed to get information from the community and from each class as to what they thought about what was going on within their classrooms, within their school systems, and within education in their state. I had no idea what to expect from my participation in this committee, but being a mother of two students who graduated and matriculated through the Coffeyville school system, I eagerly said, yes, I will participate. And so my role, I was there to participate as a representative from higher education and from the business community. So I proudly got there early. That meeting was in the high school cafeteria. And I was sitting there and I was being, prepped for what to expect by the assistant superintendent. And she was sharing with me that the meeting was being held in order to ask each representative for the community what they thought of education and what needed to improve or what needed to change at their level from what they were seeing. And so in a few minutes, students started trickling in. And I was told then that they would have 2 representatives from each grade level. So I said, okay. So I'm thinking high school. Then I started seeing smaller children walk in. And so I was really confused at this point, but I didn't realize it said P16. So there were representatives on this community from every grade level in the system. Imagine my surprise when a school bus pulled up. School bus pulled up from elementary, and the elementary students who were going to participate in the P16 committee got off. And in walked 2 students from pre-K to this meeting, to attend this meeting, and were expected to participate in this meeting. There was a little boy and there was a little girl, and they were about 4 years old. And they looked terrified. They were absolutely terrified. They had no idea what to expect. They were dressed very nice in their uniforms, and the little boy was very, very shy. And I don't think the little girl was his sister, but they knew each other from the community because he relied on her for emotional support, because he was near tears when he walked into their cafeteria and saw all of the high school students. That was enough to make him feel insecure. But then he saw grown-ups, he saw the administration. He was just really, he kept looking to the little girl for support. So they were seated and the meeting began. And the assistant superintendent started asking everyone for, questions about what they saw at their level that needed to improve in the field of education. And I just had no idea. I just kept looking at these 2 little kids that were sitting, and they were strategically sat in the middle of a group. So they didn't feel like they were at the end of the spectrum, but they were sitting in between high school students. And that was daunting to them. They were really scared. And as the administrator walked over to the students, she held out the microphone in front of them and she said, "What do you see that needs to change in your classroom?" And it scared the little girl and the little boy so bad. The little boy eyes welled up in tears. And so the superintendent realized at that time they were so out of their league, they were out of their lane, that they were frozen in time and they couldn't comprehend anything else that she was going to say unless she did something to make them feel more comfortable. So she leaned in, she softened her voice, she pulled back the microphone so they didn't feel like they were on blast. And she calmly asked them, what do you see, or what do you think, what are you having trouble with in your classroom that you would like to see us address? And they looked at her, they couldn't understand what she was saying. So she kept trying. She lowered her voice some more, and she looked over at the little boy, and the little boy, she knew not to say anything to him because he was going to cry. The little girl said, finally, she said, I don't know how to use that thing. And so the superintendent said, what thing you talking about? So at that point, the little girl was only focused on the assistant superintendent. She was standing in front of them. She had blocked out the table across from them that had more of the adults. So they felt more comfortable. And the little girl said, I don't know how to use that thing. And she said, well, what thing are you referring to? What thing are you referring? She said, that thing that clicks. She said, they read stuff to us and then we have to click this thing. And I was tickled because I had no idea what she was talking about. Finally, the superintendent realized what she was talking about. And by the superintendent blocking out their view of the people across the room, taking the microphone out of their face, she was able to draw these two pre-K students in. So by that time, the little boy felt more comfortable, and he even spoke up. He said, yeah, you know that thing that clicks all the time. We have to choose the red box or the blue box. And so then it clicked for the superintendent, the assistant superintendent. She said, oh, it's a mouse-like device that's a clicker. Would you believe pre-K had to take an assessment that was electronically assessed? These students had to use, according to the testing center, they had to use a device, a clicker, in their little pre-K room where they would read to them the question or whatever they were supposed to answer, and then they would choose the blue box for, I guess, yes, and the red box for no, or whatever it was. And so she was finally able to realize what they were saying. That's what all of the classrooms in pre-K all the way through 12th grade should look like. Every student who walks into the classroom does not have the same point of reference as the other. So what are we going to do as practitioners, as teachers, as administrators? What are we going to do to change the perception of education? We can't just walk in and ask everyone the same question because everyone is not on the same level of comprehension. So as those pre-K students they got a lot more attention that day. The conversation was lowered, the tone was lowered to accept them and pull them in to the conversation. The microphone or their sharing out was reduced. The level of them sharing was reduced so they could feel more comfortable. I've walked into some situations like this myself as an adult. I walked into rooms where I didn't feel comfortable and I was asked to participate in activities or panels discussions in which I didn't get the information beforehand or whatever. And I didn't feel on the same level. I was on the same level as other participants. Can you imagine being a pre-K student walking into a room where you were expected to actively participate with everyone else in the room? That's how our 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade students feel as they walk into the room and their teacher offers them a new pair of shoes, size 10. I'm going to tell you one other story. And this is from the great LSU coach, Dale Brown. I was in a meeting in which he spoke and he said, he was telling a story about a student he met. It was in middle school. He met the student and the student was not doing very well academically. And but the student told him he would be seeing him later on. He was a college coach and he was going to be seeing him later on. And they was in the gym or whatever they're playing. And he said to himself, I don't think I'll be seeing you later on because, you're clumsy, your feet are too big, whatever. Well, later on, he did meet the student. And the student told him he had dreams of becoming a great NBA star. And Coach Brown said, there's no way he could have dreams of doing this. He's clumsy. He doesn't, he understands the game, but he can't participate with other players because he's just too big. He had to change his practice. He had to change his outreach. He had to change the way he approached the student because the student was not like his other players. But as he worked to get this student individual help so that he could rise to the level of expectation of other players, he was able then to join in the regular practice. So I know you're asking yourself, what does that have to do with education? Well, if we provide the help that each individual student needs at the level, meet them where they are when they come into the classroom, we can get them through pre-K. That's the door to K-5. We make sure that we listen. We draw them in when they have problems. When they get in K-5, we give whatever student needs extra attention. We find a way to give them what they need in order to grasp the information, get them through the reading gate, get them through the doorway into 6th grade, the middle school. We already know that there are problems with reading comprehension and math aptitude in middle school. So we need to be looking for those problems when those students come to us in that level, so that we can move them through the next door of opportunity, which is 9th grade. They're in high school. So when do we introduce the idea of dual enrollment? It has to be way down so they can aspire to meet those credentials. So maybe introducing dual enrollment, not at 9th grade, but down in 6th and 7th, their introduction to middle school. These are the requirements. This is what we need you to work with because of all these opportunities you're going to have. Introduce them to the idea so they can aspire to meet those credentials, that they can meet those requirements. Then as they move through high school, they get into 10th grade, they can look at their GPA and say, okay, I meet the criteria. I can then smoothly move into dual enrollment. Then they'll have to deal with the affordability piece that Dr. Lawrence is going to come and share with us in a minute. But if we make sure at every level of education, at every juncture, that each student has what they need to move through the door of the window of opportunity to the next level, we can get more students into dual enrollment. And then we can get them through dual enrollment and we can get them over into post-secondary education. I digress. I go back to the story from Coach Dale Brown. So I know you're wondering if that student was successful in achieving his goals as being a great ball player. Well, yes, because that student who was clumsy, could not play basketball to save his life, according to Coach Brown. His feet were too big. He was too big to run the plays with the team. That student overcame his insecurities and his challenges with special help from the coach, from faculty members to keep him on task and keep his grades right. That student became great NBA player Shaquille O'Neal. So at each level, we can't look at a student and say, they don't understand. Because at one time we did. We said they don't understand, and we recommended them for special education when they may or may not have needed it. We've got to look and assess each student and move them through each door into opportunity to move them into dual enrollment. I've talked about the intellectual impediment for dual enrollment into the pathway to post-secondary education. There are two impediments. One is intellectual, which I have just discussed. I'm going to hand off now to Dr. Stevie Lawrence. He's going to come and he's going to talk about the affordability piece. So as we begin the discussion about how does OER in dual enrollment, I've talked about getting them into dual enrollment. Now, what does OER, Open Educational Resources, what does that do and how does that help a student that's considering enrolling in dual enrollment? We've talked about getting them there to the doorway. Now they're there at the doorway, they're ready to walk in. So maybe the cost is stopping them. So Dr. Lawrence, can you talk with us a little bit about affordability? How using OER in dual enrollment makes it more affordable for these students? Dr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Charlotte. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for introducing those topics as a segue into the conversation for Dr. Melton and I. OER resources are significantly important to the process for enrolling students in dual enrollment and keeping them there. As you know, affordability, once a student moves past the 12th grade, it becomes a huge issue in education. Open educational resources are just one way by which students can continue forward, and it increases their access and ability to complete higher education. When you think about dual enrollment, obviously there are some states that provide the necessary funding for a student to take advantage of dual enrollment courses openly and freely. There aren't any costs associated, but taking into account the resources needed to progress through those college level courses, the cost of course materials, the cost of supporting books and other materials to help a student progress can place a barrier among students, particularly those who are first generation students, those who don't necessarily, or those who come from families that college is not necessarily seen as a requirement or necessary. So take a family where, college is not necessarily something that's seen to be an advantage. Providing the economics or the fiscal resources to support their matriculation in a dual enrollment program or in college period is not a priority. So if institutions look to use these types of resources that are free and open to individuals participating in dual enrollment programs, it just decreases one barrier to help students make it to the finish line. Charlotte, you're muted. You're muted.
I'm sorry. Dr. Lawrence, who actually pays for the courses? Is there when a student enrolls in dual enrollment, they're still in high school, even though they're in the public high school, who pays for the course that's actually transferred or being done in combination with the higher education facility?
That is a great question, Charlotte. As I alluded to earlier, there are all different types of structures related to how exactly dual enrollment programs are initiated and developed and implemented within states and school districts across the Southeast, but across the country in general. There are initiatives that have been designed whereby the state or the state Board of Education supports the development of dual enrollment programs, and they see it as a priority to help students gain greater access to higher education. And it's seen as a priority to help them make it to the finish line of high school. Graduation is often, depending upon how the programs are structured, those same credits that they earn at the college level can be used to help them complete high school. But it varies from state to state, district to district. And as I said, most commonly, you will find that state officials or state boards of education actually support and provide the funding for that. But dual enrollment programs are not always a priority for school districts and states, and it's not necessarily seen as a necessity or a way to push post-secondary entry, and then as it contributes to the completion. And that's one of the main things that is important about dual enrollment. And then the second piece is, as we're discussing right now, the issue of eradicating barriers such as finances to support matriculation in dual enrollment programs. As many of you who joined us this morning, you may know that SREB has our dual enrollment advisory group that looks at exactly how dual enrollment is viewed from state to state, the importance of it, and trying to build consensus around how it can push forward access and enrollment for nearly every student or all students across the Southeast. So it's just very important to heighten the awareness of its importance, and I believe that states will get on board to really think about those funding inequities, if they exist, in providing these programs for students.
Well, so as leaders who are sparking the conversation around the advantages of dual enrollment and the advantages of OER and dual enrollment, what do you think that leaders can do to make this, to kind of level the playing field, to make funding more accessible for OER?
That is a great question. I think keeping in line with the thing that we're talking about around the area of affordability and access are key points that policymakers in education, as well as those in local government who make the decisions about funding these types of programs, they should keep those two things in mind. If they do that, I think that it will allow for greater advantages and more opportunities for students to persist through dual enrollment programs, and then take advantage of resources such as OER resources to help them matriculate, to support them throughout the process. OER resources are a significant advantage to dual enrollment programs. And just in a couple of minutes, I think Dr. Melton is going to share how post-secondary institutions have used OER resources to support in-class learning, as well as from a standpoint of supporting students that may have cost or finances as a barrier, right? But if we take a critical look at how states fund these types of programs and how they can use resources such as those provided through OER as an entry point and a way to support students who may not necessarily have the same advantages as other students, that will be a significant way by which individuals who are in those seats can make the right decisions to support students from this angle.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Lawrence. One final question. So more funding from states will solve the problem of more OER being offered through dual enrollment. What about, can we talk about the affordability from, well, what I'm used to is a community colleges, not four-year institution, but community college. How do you entice a faculty member or whatever? How do you entice them from an affordability standpoint to develop a course for OER?
That's a significant piece of the puzzle. I think that having institutional buy-in is important at various levels, right? I think, as you know, community colleges play a significant role in the development and implementation of dual enrollment programs in conjunction with local school districts, particularly obviously at the high school level. So having the institutional buy-in and really being able to bring the right people around the table to have the right conversations to get a full conceptualization about what OER resources are and how they can be used to create a more diversified or creative and innovative learning environment is important. Faculty have to really see the advantage of using these types of resources and transitioning from traditional resources to this new and innovative resource that is shared amongst all dual enrollment participants. I think that it's also important to start from the bottom up when making these sort of decisions around what type of resources we will use to help students enhance their learning in dual enrollment. So what does that mean for a local community college or four-year institution that would be providing a dual enrollment program? That means that we need to have buy-in at the presidential level. Obviously, leaders of these institutions must be knowledgeable about what OER resources are and the advantages that they provide for students as well as faculty. OER resources can cut costs, obviously, thus this conversation. Those who are serving as deans of instruction and vice presidents for academic affairs and student life, there are definitely advantages at the institutional level for buying into its usage. There are advantages that can affect institutional retention and matriculation rates in these courses, and we definitely want to see good course outcomes. And so getting these people around the table to make the appropriate decisions about what resources will be best for these students and how will they help them succeed. We have to really think a lot about the type of students that we are serving. Think about we don't want to say post-COVID, but think about where we are right now, right? There's a huge shift in learning modality. Students are being required to do what we are doing, learn in an electronic format, in a virtual world. So think about OER resources and how they can connect with how students are being asked to learn virtually. Even as you gave great examples, connecting how we have to open the pipeline and the entryway very early for students. So students are learning how to adapt to an electronic or virtual learning modality as early as kindergarten, first, second, into the fifth grade, on up into high school. So having those types of resources available and accessible to students at this juncture, dual enrollment juncture for students, is essential to really connect with them, right? And to grab their attention and to keep them in a pathway or in the process by which learning started with them early on. Although it's probably still seen as a non-traditional way or a non-traditional course material, it's certainly the way of the future, and it's certainly being used at the four-year level, and it certainly should be taken in great consideration as we think about expanding dual enrollment programs. I know that was a mouthful, but I just really wanted to connect what's happening right now in how students are learning and how using OER resources can kind of be a companion or really be a connection to what we've seen or observed as a crisis, but we can make it an advantage for the students who are enrolling in this post-secondary entryway of dual enrollment. Oh, that was a significant and a great question, Charlotte. I mean, I think that faculty buy-in is key, and I know that I may be taking a part of Dr. Melton's piece here, but faculty buy-in is key to get institutions and departments to really look at using these resources for students, and not only in dual enrollment, but students that are in their first year of college, second year of college. Higher education is a significant cost, right? And we really have to think about ways to cut that cost for students as much as we can. As you alluded to earlier, how are dual enrollment programs actually being funded? Most often, if it's seen as a priority for states, then the state are pouring in dollars to support those programs, right? But we still need to think on an institutional level, how can we commit more to the student, right? To ensure that they're getting a quality experience in a dual enrollment program or a quality experience in their college experience, but also taking that cost factor in consideration when we do that. And OER is just one way to do that. Great questions.
Thank you, Dr. Lawrence. I agree. There's got to be some hard conversations right now, because we can't say post-pandemic, but in the midst of a pandemic, we've got to realize, even before the pandemic, there's just a new market. And we've, as education, in the world of education, we've got to open our minds to new modalities, learning modalities. Because right now, we're going to lose the upcoming generation. I mean, they're just not having it. They're just not being stuck in the mode of the traditional. If you don't give them, and they are right now microwave society, if you don't give them what they want, that's okay. I'll go get it over here. And so that's what they're doing. And, you know, being close to a school district and being a member of a school board, I heard during the pandemic, you know, our kids can't learn like this. They need to go back to school. They need to go face to face, you know, in the midst of the pandemic, when you were determining whether or not to bring kids back. But they can't learn on Zoom and on Google Classroom, but they know every dance. They've learned every dance on TikTok.
That's right.
Technology is technology. And again, I think the what, the when, the where, and the why has already been determined. Is how we make the delivery that's going to make the difference. And so that transition for institution, we're going to transition right on over to Dr. Robbie Melton. How's it going over there with Affordable Learning Solutions?
Hey, life is good, and life is good here. Wherever you are, just know we have some solutions for you all. And for all of you who are listening, you are going to leave today with resources that are free that you can use right away. So Charlotte, I'm ready to rock and roll. And I know that this is only a 1-hour webinar, but every time you have a panel presenting resources to you, and as Stevie would say, life is wonderful because we got resources. So with that, I'm going to just go ahead and jump into my presentation. But first, I want to share something with you all. Some of you who've been around on planet Earth a long time would remember S&H green stamps. Those of you who are like, what? I want to leave you with my story and journey into open education resources. When my mom passed 4 years ago and cleaning her home, this is what we found in her bedroom. S&H green stamps. And you can even see the stamps that she was keeping. Well, I want everyone to know my parents were so adamant about us getting World Book encyclopedias. And in those days, and you didn't have any money, you saved stamps. My mom had a whole box of S&H green stamps so that she could send in to get us World Book Encyclopedia. Ladies and gentlemen, she never got all of the books. And I'm here today to share with you, with open education resources, you can get it on any tablet now. If you are sitting in the audience and you have your phone or tablet or computer, you have at your fingertips the ability to access free educational resources. And forget the S&H green stamps, you have more at your fingertips through these devices, whether they're iPads 1 or 100, Androids, BlackBerry. Anytime you can get to the internet, you have an amazing wealth of resources, but we don't tap into it. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just have 15 minutes of your life so you can leave here and share with your family, your friends, your neighbors, your schools, all of these resources that can help them to learn. Again, I come to you. I'm Robbie Melton. You don't have to remember the name, but just remember when you see me, I'm going to ask you, do you have that World Book Encyclopedia app on you on behalf of my mom? We are in a generation where we can access information free. So I just want to do a quick shout out to the Tennessee State Open Education Resource staff. And I say that to you because they're ready right now to help you wherever you are worldwide, whether it's pre-K, dual enrollment, high school, lifelong learning. They're in the chat right now, and they will put their name from Dr. Chisholm, Dr. Ampadu, Dr. Warner, hey, McKaylee, you there too, and of course, Miss Audie Black. So I'm setting you already up. So you can't leave here saying, I didn't learn anything, I didn't gain anything. I have now given you people who will help you, and now I'm going to share with you why open education resources for underserved population and for all population, vital in today's education. I'm going to share my screen, and like with any technology, it might work, might not. I'm a teacher. So with that, I'm able to present to you open education resources, primary, secondary, post-secondary. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking worldwide, 24 hours, 7 days a week on any device that you can get to the internet. Now, a long time ago, that used to be an issue. We didn't have internet. We used to have dial-in. Ladies and gentlemen, you would dial into the internet and you could go and wash 5 tubs of clothes before it would connect. You can now go to McDonald's, yes, or wherever, and you now have free internet. They have free internet on some buses in California. What we're talking about right now is access to that information. So I have to give another shout out to the William and Flora Hewitt Foundation for funding all of this. But here's my story, Charlotte. This is my life growing up, a bookmobile. That's how we access education. Yeah, we would stand there and wait for the bell, ding, ding. Now, all you have to do is go on your phone, and that's a big view of S&H Green Steps. Ladies and gentlemen, students cannot learn from books they cannot afford. And the cost of textbook, we're talking about over $14 billion a year across the world in terms of textbooks. Per person, we're talking about over $1,200 per year. We also know that 7 out of 10 students don't even purchase a textbook, and 60% of students have delayed purchasing textbook until they receive their financial aid. What we're talking about, when you start the first day of class, if you don't have those textbooks, you're already behind. And every day that you don't have it, you can multiply that by a week of being behind. So with that, we all know that textbook cost increases faster than inflation. And where the money for these textbooks? Look at the breakdown. 77.9 cents of a dollar for textbook goes to textbook wholesale costs. So with that, we're talking open education resources. And it's clear, the more you know about it, and you do know about it, because if I said to you right now, YouTube, you go, I know YouTube. That's open education resources, everyone. We have a wealth of resources out there for you and for your schools. So with that, we're talking textbooks, audiobooks, course material, interactive content, name it, it's out there. And if you think Yeah, there's junk out there, but we have organizations like Merlot, like Open Education Commons, that helps to screen that junk out and give you what you need for teaching and learning. So right now, I'm giving you a resource, a free app, KOBO, Kobo, over 6 million books at your fingertips. Download it. It's free. Again, you're walking away today with just one of a wealth of resources where you can open up your own library. Come on, everybody. You should be so excited that you can now present to your students all of these resources, and they are free. We know worldwide with this pandemic, it hit us and we had to quickly go online. But we went online, but we didn't know about the quality of resources. I want you to know all across the world, there is a movement for open education resources. And with the African Storybook, because they do not have access to internet and Wi-Fi like we do here in some parts, they have created the technology that they will share with you, that you download your reading materials and then you can read them offline in the language of choice. So on behalf of the historically Black colleges and university, Tennessee State is the hub for providing training and collecting information and resources to empower our students to have 24/7, anytime, anywhere, any device, access to educational content. We are partnering with Merlot and Charlotte. You know, the next series, you will have Dr. Jerry Hanley and his team presenting. And again, it's all free. You all should be lined up. And just think, if you had to pay for services like this, none of us would be able to afford it. But Charlotte, I'm pleased to share with you, we have an HBCU affordable learning portal. It's free. My team will put the URL in the chat. And here's what's special about this. We know with a lot of materials, we often miss what I call the need, the respect, the honor of our cultures. Not this time. We have an HBCU portal that will emphasize all of our cultures, our HBCUs, contribution, and to bring in that cultural flair with all of this open education resources. So everybody, what's the problem? The problem is most higher education faculty are unaware of open education resources. And with our survey, even in 2021, we still have very few people really understanding what this is all about. So with that, we are presenting to you through this series how you can access, how you can create, and most importantly, how you can share. So with that, what keeps teachers from adopting all of this rich resources? Well, number one, the difficulty finding the right teachers. Guess what, everyone? We got a solution for that. Lack of resources for my subject area. Guess what, everyone? You know, we got a team across the nation that will help you with that. All you have to do is ask, and someone will be there to help. Concerns about curriculum updates, we got that covered. Not high quality materials, we have a peer team that when you submit information or we receive information, we have a community of experts that will review the materials and will even rank them for you. Also, with our funding from the Hewlett Foundation, again, our goal is to engage HBCUs in awareness, planning, and implementation. So if you're not an HBCU, let me rephrase it. We're here to help all. We put the focus on the HBCUs, but the focus is really global. We are here to help all. So even though you keep hearing HBCU, just put down and just cover the H and the B and the C and just say you, because this is about all of us, you. So with that, we already have the data regarding the barriers, hard to find materials. Again, we have a portal already set up and you want this information. Why? We have already catalyzed and collected all of this information by discipline. So we even have planning tools. And again, how to support faculty, workshops. But some of us really need a live person. You need someone to interact with. Guess what? Yes, all you have to do, contact us, and we will set up a live webinar geared to your faculty school discipline. Not only that, we even have community portals. So for faculty development, for mobile learning, open courseware. How about how to teach using open education? See, we arrived here to this webinar ready for you. It's now all up to you. But did you see that last square called virtual labs? Virtual labs, yes, free, open virtual labs in your STEM area. You should be going like this right now. I'm so excited. Look within just 10 minutes of a presentation what you are leaving with. So with that, with Merlot, we have ready for you, as stated, per discipline. So if you're into ag, biology, chemistry, communication, criminal justice, English, fire science, I can go on and on and on. We're already ready for you. We have all of your information from dual enrollment all the way up. Yes, did you hear that? We are already have lessons, resources, videos, animations, lesson plans already for your dual enrollment students to your lifelong learners. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to share with you. How about those free and open e-textbooks? Now, I'm sure you're going, if it's free, it might not be worth anything. I want you to know again, on behalf of our partnership, we review this information and we share with you, we rank them, we even have faculty to give feedback. So case in point, Charlotte, here's my other story, a biology book. We had an instructor using a biology book for $250. And we're able to put in that ISBN number. Thank you, Takesha. And we found the same book that was on our OER list through our Creative Commons license that was free. All right, everybody, free. We're talking about a general biology class. You know how many that start out at first day? Multiply that out. Now multiply that out every semester. Multiply that out across the nation. And then we have quality materials that's free. Multiply 0 times whatever, and it's still free. That's what we are here about. And again, we also recognize the lack of OER cultural relevance material. So on behalf of our partnership, we bring to you now, on behalf of diversity, inclusion, information, and resources. And here we are in terms of our general collection, our HBCU history, and again, we have partnered with the African American National Museum. Look at all of the subjects, all linked, all ready for you to use to teach and learn. So I know that I am probably out of time, but I am just so excited. Look, everyone, you don't have to use S&H green stamps anymore. It's on your device. You don't even have to go, who should I call? Charlotte and SREB have made it possible for you to reach out to all of us. We have websites ready for you. We have portal. We have webinar. So come on. What's the problem? Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you so much, Dr. Melton. It's so much information. I had no idea. I knew you had a wealth of information, but not to this extent. I mean, I'm new to the party. I'm new to the conversation right now, but I am really, really impressed. I mean, hey, I'm with you. What's the problem? Let's move. Let's do it. Let's address the public. Our students now, we have the new generation who are demanding electronic delivery. We also have the opportunity to target a new market, because some people just won't return to brick and mortar. They just refuse. So not only are we having to look at OER, we also have to look at making sure that all of our admissions and financial aid and student support, all that has to come online, because some people are just refusing to return. So OER is the way to go. Right now, I'm going to open it up for more questions. We have two sitting in the box right now. The first question is, how do we make students who do not want to attend college feel the same level of empowerment as those who know they'd like to attend? We need tradespeople just as much as college-educated individuals, but don't want to constantly push college when not all students want to pursue the pathway. How can we address that gap? I am glad you asked. This person who asked this question needs to go right to our website right now, www.sreb.com/webinars. You need to register for our third webinar, where we're going to cover OER and career technical education. And also dual enrollment, we're going to talk about the delivery, we're actually going to have a session on how to build the OER, how to reach out to people to help you build your OER. Then we're going to look at dual enrollment and career technical programs right now who are using OER. They're using it for car repair, small injury repair, whatever, those CTE courses. So we do have that covered. Just hang with us. Go out there now and register for this session. We'll give you more information. We'll have other professionals and practitioners like Dr. Melton, who's going to tell you all about it.
Charlotte, I do want to add something to that,
to
your response there. I think is very important. And back to the original statements that you made earlier, Charlotte, about starting very early with students in the educational pipeline. I think it's important to talk with a great amount of intention. That's the word I'm looking for, as students begin to think about what their pathway is, right? And I think that it's important to show value or emphasize value around career and technical education, as those are in-demand career fields, and those students that are not necessarily interested in a traditional pathway of a 4-year liberal arts education as it is. I'm a person that has an undergraduate degree in liberal arts. I always talk about a history. People say, what are you going to do with that? But students in particular need to know that those career and tech ed programs are important. And that really needs to be emphasized very early on. But in conjunction with that, as you just highlighted, Charlotte, faculty, department chairs, and program coordinators at the institutions that provide those type of degree and certificate programs have to buy into what we've just discussed today about how to reshape or repackage what those academic programs look like, right? And the resources that support the learning throughout those programs for the students that are interested in those programs. So I think it's a two-way street. I think there's work to be done early on in the educational process by showing value in those types of degree and certificate programs, as I call them, workforce programs that students can go in, earn a credential, and go right into the workforce, right? But there's also value or responsibility to be had with those on the campus level at our technical and community colleges in reshaping and adding a bit more innovation, particularly around how students learn in those programs. So I think those are some ways for the person to ask that question of how we can help students be more energized about pursuing those types of careers. That's right. My two.
Right. You know, when you look at education, it has evolved. It's not evolving. Well, it's continuously evolving, but the evolution has arrived. And now it's a matter of making sure that supply meets demand.
That's right.
The market is demanding that we look at and reinvigorate our campuses, how we think about the delivery. Like I said, it's the how. The delivery has to evolve with the person with whom we're serving. That's so right. Just as pre-K, we've got to get down, we've got to get into the meat of things. We've got to meet each student where they are. First of all, we got to have these conversations early with students. We got to find out who's going to college. I have two sons. One let me know he wanted to work from the time he was like 4 or 5. He always wanted to do something to earn money. And he made it clear, even though he had a high math aptitude, he made it clear to me he had no interest in going to college. None. I don't care how I tried to drag him off to, look at college and stuff like that. He just wasn't interested. So we've got to have conversations with these children early on. Now, the flip side of that coin is I had one son who I had to drag through high school. And I was just like, I had to drag him through high school. He was not interested in education whatsoever. That son decided to be a teacher. And right now he's a teacher and a coach. He's an elementary school teacher. And it's just the flip side of the coin. So you got to have these conversations and trying to meet students where they are every time they enter the classroom and try to provide what they want. Supply must meet demand if we're going to be viable as educational institutions and organizations, because if not, we're not going to have a market. If we don't give people what they want, we're not going to have a market. Right. So that question, the next question is, will this deck be shared after the call? And so the answer to that, our event planner, Ms. Jasmine Jones, has answered. The recording will be available after following today's session. And we have another question that says, it will be great if we could get a PDF of Dr. Melton's slides, if she's willing to share. So, Dr. Melton, she says, okay. So,
wait a minute, Charlotte, I have to answer that with a smile. Isn't this about open education resources? Come on now, yes. And I'll send some more things your way too. Just make sure you let us know where to send the information. Life is good.
Okay, if you would forward it to me and Jasmine, and copy me on it. Jasmine has access to our registration list for today, and I'll have it to share with others who may view the slide, view the presentation later and want a copy of it as well. So right now, I'm going to ask if there are any other questions that we can address. I've certainly enjoyed this webinar this morning, I started off pretty nervous, and I have really, in the anticipation, I mean, I feel that we have really shared out. You know, when you have those counseling sessions with people, those group sessions, and you have this wonderful, cozy feeling after you sharing, that's how I'm feeling right now, you know. So we don't have any questions that have popped up in the chat or in the Q&A box. So right now I'm going to ask, are all minds clear? Dr. Lawrence, do you have any parting words?
I do. Thank you so much, Charlotte, in your role as our OER specialist, and the great connections that you've been able to make in a very short time that you've been with us in promoting SREB's or a piece of SREB's mission, particularly from our Office of Postsecondary Education, in promoting the usage of open educational resources among dual enrollment programs. Specifically, our grant from the Hewlett Foundation supports this work. So dual enrollment programs and OER is the focus of this work, with some emphasis on minority serving institutions and HBCUs who've been charged to really share and get the word out and help emphasize how important it is to adopt these resources in dual enrollment and beyond. So thank you for beginning this work, Charlotte, and great work. And thank you as well, Dr. Melton, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and share with the audience today who are participating on this webinar. There's great work happening across the region, and specifically at TSU as an MSI and HBCU. They're doing great work in showcasing how institutions of higher education can adopt OER resources. And we look forward to the next two webinars in the series. Is there one thing you want to say, Dr. Melton?
Yes, we have among us a distinguished dual enrollment OER, what I call it, specialist at Tennessee State University. She has a full team. And if you are interested in tapping in, I put her name, Dr. Johnny Smith, and her entire team in the chat. Not only will they help you with OER, but if you have questions about dual enrollment, online, on ground, again, the whole purpose of this webinar and this series is all about sharing. So thank you all very much, and life is good.
Life is outstanding, and thank you again for being a part of our first webinar series, and thanks to those who participated, and we hope that you join us for the next webinar, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.